Green and all that. We'll get it going. Yeah. All right. Nope. 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 Yeah. No. Crap. Where's start? That just in home. Crap. It's been a little bit since I actually had to run a presentation off of.
Yeah, I thought it was under home.
Yeah. No, you just go to a slideshow.
Ah, they made it too easy. All right. So here you go. Hope this enlightens you guys or something. So, of course, I got the topic for hibernate, and hibernate not only for the bears. Hibernate is a object relational mapping program, so an ORM that allows for like oriented objects to be converted to a database, which is pretty awesome in terms of just usefulness because at that point you can take like your outputs for arrays or any other kind of listing and put it into like a SQL, which SQL is really easy to turn into text documents. So it's kind of just like a cool little like converter there. Um, Essentially, Hibernate is a library that allows Java to influence SQL databases and lets you run those SQL statements. When creating a Java object, Java treats the information as if it's interconnected and builds itself. I mean, you guys know how that works. It's all about the hierarchy. It's like you have your class, you have your function, you have your for loop, and basically it all just stems off of hierarchy and inheritance. Whereas SQL, it's just a table that you put. It was like Excel. I always think of SQL like Excel. Like you have your table and your cells, and you just click the one you want, and you can edit it with whatever information you want. So it's a really good program for storing. The whole purpose of Hibernate is to take values from Java and persist them into a database table, which okay. So, and another nice thing is Hibernate implements simple syntax. At least that's what it said. Everything, everything I saw didn't look super simple, but hey, maybe I'm just not getting it. So, object relational mapping is the key process. So, Java already had a built-in program for getting for transferring data, and that was the Java Database Connectivity, which is JDBC. But unfortunately, there was just things that like just kind of like conversions that didn't work out so well. So Hibernate was basically the fix to that by making an ORM that fundamentally goes through and makes makes all the errors go away. It's really intuitive with trying to think about what you're doing and trying to read your mind kind of thing. So how it works is Hibernate acts like an intermediary between the layers of Java objects uh, and their conversion to a SQL language. The process is often shown in the syntax O\R, which stands for object relational. So if you see that, that usually just means it's the process of an object turning into a piece of SQL or vice versa, relational. A SQL turning into a Java object. I saw kind of a cool little statistic. Hibernate takes care of 95% of the process that would take a developer to code in order to implement an OR transfer. Hibernate has layered architecture, which lets you use it without knowing the APIs, which APIs are basically like the functions and methods, all the like nitty gritty stuff that takes you a long time to put into code. So pretty much you can just use like keywords and imports rather than trying to write out whole paragraphs of code. So here's a more detailed example of how that really works, what classes Hibernate contains, and Java pushing through an object, and the APIs that change the object to a SQL language. So, and there's 6 different Hibernate application architectures: configuration, session factory, a session, transaction, query, and criteria. I'll talk about those here more in a minute. Hibernate also uses the existing APIs that Java has implemented, like GTA, Java Transaction, the JDBC, Java Database Connectivity, and JNDI, which is Java Naming and Directory Interface. So basically, Hibernate just takes what Java has, improved it so that it's faster, easier, and simpler to transfer objects to a SQL language. So configuration object is one of the more important classes. From what I found, configuration is basically like the hoops that you want your object to jump through while it's on its way to Hibernate. A very prominent one that I found was like adding a password to your to like the push, essentially. So, and yeah, configuring your Hibernate includes making passwords and setting parameters for using and what you want to happen. There's 2 very large components to the configuration step. One of those, the database connection, actually connecting to the database through Hibernate, uses the file hibernate.properties and hibernate.cfg.xml. From what I found through reading, you can use either of those, but I think that you can also use both, just kind of as like a catch-all to make sure that it all goes through. Class mapping setup is it actually creates the connection, so you can push the variables through. I was really impressed with the tutorial spot for showing how to configure things properly. So I would really suggest that if you're having trouble like setting up that like import document and stuff, go through there. It'll show you like how to set up a password and all that kind of stuff. It was really interesting. The next object that's really important to Hibernate is creating a session factory object, which session factory is basically just kind of like an import for sessions. Session factories are applied to all threads in the application. If you're threading into multiple databases, you'll have to create a session factory for each database you're using, which isn't super relevant to what we're doing. We're just trying to get anything into a database. But so session factory is kind of like, I want to start making sessions, and I'll talk about sessions next, but session factory is how you start making those. So a session is an object that physically connects with the database. So if you wanted to enter an array into a database, you would essentially create a session and then close it after it was complete, and then all that data would be sent to the database you're using. Sessions shouldn't be super long, so like don't try to include like, I don't know, every possible thing into a single session, because from what I could see, there was like thread corruption is what they called it, which essentially just kind of doesn't send everything over nice and ordered. There's 3 states of sessions. Transient. So basically, transient session is when you start creating a whole new instance for a Java class. Like the very first time you're pushing something from Java to SQL, it's called transient because there's nothing that represents it in the database. Persistent is a transient instance that becomes persistent because it's basically like if you're updating like the array or some other form, hash map, whatever you're putting in there. If like the database already contains some of that information and like the session just basically runs again, is considered persistent because it's just basically gaining a little bit more information to the database from what's already there. And then the last state of a session is detached. So once the session's ran and it's closed, it's detached and stops transferring to the database. So this one's kind of funny in my mind. From everything I found, the transaction object is an optional add-in because transactions are a API of Java, of the JDBC or the GTA. And from what I saw, Hibernate can choose to just override the transaction object you implement and use their more efficient code to make it better, basically. A query object is kind of the opposite end of the session statement. Queries send database information to the Java program. So a query instance is initiated to create a query parameter, such as limiting the number of results pulled by the initiated query. The query instant also executes the query. So it's basically like query run, and then it sends it over to Java and populates whatever you need. Lastly, there's the criteria object, which makes and runs object-oriented criteria queries to retrieve objects. So essentially, you can like query objects from one or the other. You can pull just kind of big hunks of code that way. Then that's kind of all I have. I truly like Tutorials Point if you guys want to see like the syntax for sessions and such. I was thinking about adding like code and all that to this. I was thinking that my slides would get just a little bit big because there's so many, but you know, it's supposed to be simple. So that's kind of all I have on it. I was really wanting to show you guys like the transfer in action and all that using NetBeans to the MySQL workbench, but unfortunately I still haven't really got all my file situation figured out. Is there any questions on Hibernate that I can hopefully answer for you guys?
No, I don't have any.
I had one.
Oh yeah?
So of those like 6 things like criteria and whatnot, was one of them transaction?
Yes.
So does that work like SQL transactions in general, like where you can start a transaction and then like roll it back?
I'm not too sure about that. The example that I saw was related to Java transactions. And the transaction objects basically use the import of JDBC, which is basically like the old method for sending information out. That's a really good question though. I wouldn't mind looking that up for myself to see if it's SQL related as well.
Okay, cool.
Anything else I can hopefully give you guys something for?
I don't have any questions.
Great. That was perfect then. Well, close to perfect. Just one question. Oof. I'm just kidding. Well, that's all for me then.
Was it Ron that was doing the other one today?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think I'm ready.
All right.
Yep.
I would say, do you go by Ron or Ronald?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah, Ron is fine. Okay, let me share my screen. Hold on. Okay, you can see the PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Okay. So for some reason, maybe I don't read good assignment and I just do the JSON, and I don't do the QC JSON. But okay, I'm gonna explain a little bit about JSON. So JSON stands to JavaScript Object Notation. Was originally was born to, or was created to make a standard for exchange data between programming language that don't have communication between them. JSON is a lightweight data interchange format. So it's just text. So we can create one text on any text editor, and we need to put like dash JSON, and that way we can use for on another programs. JSON is based how the JavaScript objects work, but it's not related to this language. Is not the same. JSON is only a text, and JSON we can use in many other programming language like JavaScript, C, C++, Python, Visual Basic, Ruby, C#, Perl, Java, and many others. So it's the best data interchange language. And so I have the structure here, how this works. So on here, on curly bracer, everything here is the object. The object, inside the object is coming in pairs. So I have to be like this one, like the first name and on the name here. Everything have to be in pair. We can put the arrays on brackets. So everything inside the bracket is related to, in this case, like the phone numbers. So everything is inside the bracket is related to the phone numbers in this case. So all the information that's contained within the phone number, we can separate by commas. We can put everything on the curly braces, on the braces. The curly braces used to define a single object, while the other define the sequence or the other objects. Or we can put valued, or we can put a list. So all this come on the curly braces. Let's see. So to start, we need to download the library. The library allows to serialize and deserialize the object, and we can take. I take this one. Is a from Java. It's a Java jar. It have to be the file. I was looking now. We can download on Git code the QC JSON, and let me move to the code. So in the code, well, we need to download the library, and on NetBeans we need to go to library here. and add a jar folder. We click on jar folder, and we need to find like this one. I already put in my library. This the jar folder. So once you have the jar folder, you can start to do the code. So I found a really nice code that was easy for me to understand. In this one, I use my information, and we're gonna see this one to write JSON. We need to import those files, and we need to put on this part the JSON object. When we call the JSON object, and we start to put the information. This information is separate. The same with this one. All depend on how we want to send the information. We want to send on numbers or letter, like we have the hash map here. Here we is the print write. We with the print write flash, we send to the we send the data to the disk, and we close for the print writer. So if I run this, okay, it's gonna just send the information. Let me see. Okay. So here's information. So it's in curly braces. Yeah, all the information in pairs. Here is a telephone number. So this is the right. So that does work. Now for read the JSON from the file, well, we need to also call the import the file from the library. And so here's the main, and we call the object. Here's the file where I have the information. And yeah, we start to get information, the names, the age, which use long, like because it's a number. The map, and well, all the here's the array also that we need to use to call the array that we have. So if I run this, here is all the information. So it worked. How I tell you, this code was easy to understand for me. It's a little bit hard to explain, but yeah.
Can you do the read and the write at the same time? I mean, like in the same file, or does it always have to be separate?
Oh, on this one, I think it's in the same one. I was reading about the QC JSON, and I think with that one we can do it separate. I did in the same one. So was on the same that I put information, the same where I get the information. So yeah, you guys have more questions? I have not.
I don't really have a question, but you said you couldn't really find anything on QCJSON, and if you straight up Google it, there's only like 400 results versus if you Google JSON, it's like 180 million or something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in previous semesters, QCJSON has just been ignored. I don't know why they still have it there, to be honest.
Yeah, I was trying to find some information. And yes, I just get like a one web page, like that one, and I don't get a lot of information about QC.
Yeah, I think someone at BYU made it or something, and they tried to integrate it, and it didn't really work.
Yeah, I think it's I was reading it was made in Idaho, so for sure it's somebody from BYU Idaho.
That would explain it.
So yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I thought the explanation was pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, so yeah, well, what's a little bit confusing for me, there is a lot of codes and everybody do the codes a different ways. So it was hard to find a easy one.
Yeah, it can be used in a lot of different things. The most common thing I've seen it in is if, like on your website or something, there's a large table that you need to like filter through or something. Most of that's in JSON because it's easier to just filter through that data, and you can make that data static, or depending on your database, you can cache it and do a lot of different things with it.
Yeah, I used it before with JavaScript, with making web page, and I don't know, I think it's more easier at this one. And yeah, there is another code to get the like from web page or for GitHub or from other places. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Hello?
I'm still here.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah.
It did get really quiet though.
Yeah,
It did.
yeah.
All right. Yeah, I was just looking at some of the code. So the read JSON is a like a holder class. You have to use that for the what you call it, for the class.
Wait, what was that question again?
Oh, sorry. I was just so you have to do you have to use read JSON for the start of a JSON class? Like,
I don't
Oh,
think
I made this class.
Okay.
You can put the name.
Yeah, he's
Whatever you
put it
want.
because this was the one that is doing the reading of his data. The other
Yeah.
one's writing his data. But I was
Okay.
wondering if you can write. Can you write it where you can read and write at the same time?
yeah.
Because you should be able to say you could read it out, and then you could ask them, "Do you want this to be printed out or saved somewhere?" And then you could kick right into the next function.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I make separate because yes, it was easier for me to
Right.
explain it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I was just like wondering if it was like an import or something that went with JSON, because I don't really have much experience with JSON at all.
I think it's just that you use the jar library or those jar
Okay.
files.
So pretty simple then.
What is the difference of, like, you can download those same files into your library, not calling it a jar, just taking the stuff to the library. Is it supposed to come into a jar?
So I'm not sure. I was like I download this one, and it's work. I have everything here. Like in Eclipse, and Eclipse have to be a jar.
Okay.
And this one, I try to download this one, and that's work. So maybe don't have to be a jar. But when you hit here, well, I did in this one.
Right. So like I just
Okay.
added add to the library. Like when I was working on Hibernate, I didn't bring it in as a jar, and I was just wondering if it makes a difference. Does anybody know?
So I think it makes a difference if you're like exporting it to a different computer. Because if you have the jar and you build it on your computer and you put it on another computer, it's going to work on the other computer. Whereas sometimes the library might not match up.
Okay.
That's my understanding, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that no one's really said, and I just brought it into the library when I was working on Hibernate, and it seems to be working. But then I saw someone else talk about jars, and so then I wondered if there's a reason we use a jar over just bringing it into the library.
So where I work, we use Artifactory, which has like all of our jars that we commonly use in them.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we have like Jenkins or some other thing build our project, it'll grab all those jars for us and put it into the project and build it itself. So we have more of a common place for the stuff. And that's where I think jars are more handy, is if you're putting it onto another machine or something, the jar is going to tell you exactly what you need to know, whereas library can be more like a reference point.
Right. So what you're saying is a jar is its own complete whatever, wherever it gets transported, whereas on a library, the connections may not transfer completely the right way, as it's going to be tied more to that individual's whatever, the library set it up.
Yeah, that's how I understand it.
Okay. So it would be better that they were in their individual jars, because then the information is all there contained in the jar as you move this stuff from place to place.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so do we know who's supposed to be doing next week's?
I think it's me and someone else.
Yeah, I'm doing next week, I think, as well.
Okay, so is it servlets and something else?
Servlets and let's see. I thought it was like
URL and HTTP Android HTTP URL connection.
Yeah. So I think I was doing URL and HTTP. I think that was my assignment.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I have servlets.
Servlets. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. And then I know when they were supposed to be doing something creative for our journal entries, and he doesn't just want journal whatever. What are you guys doing?
For next week's journal entries, or?
Well, we don't turn them in until the end of the semester, and I know on there it says he doesn't want just straight journal entries or to be creative. It could be a PowerPoint, it could be a video. He's not looking, I don't know. I just was wondering what others are doing. I mean, like I've written little notes of things that I've thought about, but I thought, I don't know how to creatively stick that somewhere. I mean, I'm thinking I'm just going to do a PowerPoint. But
so that is like you every week you have to do like what you learned that week on, I don't know, on PowerPoint or video or something like that.
Well, yeah, I don't know. He said he didn't really want. I'll say, let's see if we can.
So what I've seen is like PowerPoints or videos, like at the end of like a conglomeration of what you've learned throughout the semester.
Right.
And so, like, I think just keeping track of what you've learned every week, and then at the end of the semester, like summing it all up in some form or fashion, because he'll say more about it at like week 10 or 11, because that's about when the time when he starts posting that stuff.
Okay.
Oh, I found a good Stack Overflow about the library versus jars thing that I'm gonna post in our discussion board. But it's basically a library is like a collection of jars, is what this is saying.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm just gonna post it.
Are you posting it in our group thing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the better coding would be to use jars then.
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm just asking. I haven't read that much on it. Most of the time I'm just trying to, keep chugging away. I was feeling like I was really behind last week, but then I thought maybe I'm not so far behind. So have you guys already kind of thought about what final project you're going to do with these? So question, if we're supposed to compile something that uses all these, does that mean we're going to be using an MVC and an application controller somewhere in whatever we're doing?
Seems redundant, but it sounds like we're supposed to.
What I know, yeah, you're supposed to use them both, but I don't know how you're also supposed to use like servlets with all of it at the same time kind of deal.
Right. Yeah, I just was trying to picture in my mind, and then I thought, okay, I guess I could have something where each place you go is using something else, but I don't know. I was like, I have nothing, and I'm like, okay, we're already at week 5, and I should have some kind of plan.
Not really. Part of your grade is that plan after week 10.
Right.
So.
Well, I know, but I was just thinking week 10 is going to be here, and I need to have some kind of something. Like right now, I have nothing. I'm looking at all this stuff going, you want me to do what with it? Like I'm just happy I've gotten something up and going, and you want me to now merge all of these things together and show how they all work, and that I'm just really fluent at it all.
Yeah, I think an A is really hard in this class for a reason.
Right.
So we're doing something like, how we're doing every week, we're working on one item. For the final project, we couldn't have like a little program that says, like 1 through 14, and then you click on number 1 and it shows you MVC, number 2 shows you servlets, stuff like that. That wouldn't be what he's looking for at the end.
I've been kind of thinking that way in my own head too. I've been thinking about like, well, maybe for a final project I could just do like case statements and then like 1 through 14.
So you're doing like you'll do a view where you can say 1, it will take you to whatever, and it's showing you something using one of the things.
Correct. Yeah, kind of like a
what
little.
I've been thinking. I don't know if it's right, but it's kind of like the only way I could see implementing all that stuff.
I ask on the discussion board if that's something that he would accept, because as far as I know, it'd be more like, so you have this MVC that's using JSON on a servlet that uses your collections things with Hibernate to send it, blah, 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 kind of deal.
Yeah, and that's what I thought he was going to ask us to do, is that I'm taking all these things and showing how with threads I can be doing, several different things off using servlets or whatever, pacing them through and saving time, and that they're small little sets of code at the same time that I've set it up where my classes are sitting over in an MVC kind of style using a handler to hop them around.
Mm.
But nothing comes to mind what I would blend all that to, because I'm not working with that. But yeah, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, how would I really make all these work? And he seems to be thinking we're thinking that way, because there's a lot of times on that familiarity form, he's saying, is this merged with anything? Like, am I already seeing how I could have used this with that?
Yeah, it's all above my head.
Yeah, mine too.
Agreed.
Well, I have been happy that so far of the 5 things I've turned in, he has given me basic, and that I don't have to go back and add anything to it at this point. It can keep moving forward.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. And he turned it pretty fast. I was surprised, because I turned one in last week, and I think he had them back yesterday, saying that they were good
That's pretty quick.
and stuff. Because I had turned in 3 last week. I had hoped for 4, but Hibernate wasn't quite up and going yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look up at the link you posted so I could set up my Hibernate too.
I
was having issues with
actually
it.
reading Hibernate didn't look like it was hard.
Yeah, I mean, tutorials said that it was simple, but once again, it was just like hitting my head against a brick wall trying to figure out how to make it all work together.
Right. So I could understand that I needed something to merge or be the talking between the two of them to get it to go up to where the database is. But where I got a little overwhelmed in your presentation was looking at all those other processes. I'm thinking, okay, all the code I looked at, we weren't having to use any of those other things. It was a command and the mapping to get the basic part going.
Yeah, to get basic, you don't have to have all those things, but I think to get past basic, you need some more.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. To look at just a basic program to say, I made the connection, I can search that database looking for these things, and I have a key or a primary thing that links them together. That seems pretty simple. But as I was looking at all those other things, I'm thinking, okay, I haven't spent that much time reading about transaction and sessions. I understood what each meant, and, thinking of other things we've learned and talked about, I'm thinking, okay, I can understand why you would need that. But I'm like, I have not read to know how to really use that and how I would utilize those things in a program.
Yeah, sometimes you just don't learn about it until you really need to use it type deal.
I keep telling myself that. Just keep doing what needs to be done to say I'm at basic, and it'll all come. I will be so inspired to know what to do.
Yes. Keep pushing until it happens.
That's right. And be encouraged that my failing score keeps moving up. Although I'm still failing, the little points come up.
Yeah, there you go. Positive attitude.
I'm at least at 38%. I'm almost at 40.
Halfway to a B.
So, all right. So anything else?
I don't have anything.
No,
I don't have anything.
No, I'm good.
I think you guys did great.
Well, thanks for lying, but I'm just kidding.
No, you guys have you've had much harder subjects than, like when I do collections. And I'm thinking, that ended up working really well for me. So, all right. Well, everybody have a good night then. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks.
I'll post this video up. I'll get it changed over, and then I'll put the link on it. I'll try not to fat finger the wrong thing.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Hey, guys.
Have a good evening.
See ya.